Let's make mead on a Walmart budget.
I'm Greg.
I'm Julie, and we're the Crafty Winers.
Most of our videos are tailored towards people that make wine already at home. This series of videos is geared towards people that don't. And you can buy anything that's in this video, everything that we use, you can buy from Walmart, your local Walmart. This particular one is how to make mead, which is basically wine using honey instead of sugar. It has its own characteristics. This particular one is just going to be basically water, nutrient, and honey, and yeast. And then you can decide if you want to put fruit in it, which I think we probably will, but we'll decide that when we get to that point.
Yep.
So we have a pitcher. All of the stuff that's here has all been sanitized using Dawn antibacterial. You don't probably want to use the regular Dawn. The antibacterial part does add a little more protection.
Yeah.
But it's important to have everything very clean before you start, and this has all been cleaned that way. We're using Walmart water. Everything, again, great value honey. It's all Walmart. So I'm going to get just short of a gallon of water into my pitcher that came from Walmart.
Go figure.
I'm going to give the dog something to play with. But they won't. They'll just stare at me like, why'd you wake me up from my nap? It's 3/4 of a gallon. I'm just making sure I have room for my honey. So this is 2 pounds of honey. This is going to end up with a mead that is around 10%. So if you want it to be higher than that, just put a little more honey. 2.5 pounds honey is going to be about 13%. About 5% per pound. So typically. So this is very thick right now. It's at room temperature, but it's still pretty thick.
Yeah.
So I'm going to pour some of this in here to make room. And then I'm going to stick this, now that I know it's not going to boil over, I'm going to stick this in the microwave so that this honey is a whole lot easier to get out of the container. So she microwaved this for about 45 seconds and it started to melt the container. So probably about 30 seconds is safer. This is very liquidy now. And the point is to try to get all the honey into our container and out of the container it came in. That's why you want to warm it up. If you're really patient, you can skip that. But we're not. And for 0.1% ABV, I'm not going to let it sit there any longer. Okay. Stir it up real good. Actually, let's go up to a gallon. We're a little short.
I bet if I threw that on the floor, the dogs would play with it.
Yeah, I bet you they would. So we're using a nutrient here. We're being a little creative because we had to find stuff that comes from Walmart. Normally you'd use something called GoFerm or Fermento or something similar to that. This is 1 tablespoon of a concoction that is basically Fleischmann's dry yeast and wheat germ that is baked at 225 in the oven for about 10 minutes to kill any existing yeast, because you don't want yeast to be competing with what we're putting in there. Yeast that's on the wheat germ. If you can't get wheat germ or you don't want to pay the money for it because it's not the cheapest stuff, you can use whole wheat flour. Try to stay away from anything that is bleached, because that can get rid of the nutrients, which is why people say don't eat stuff with bleached flour.
Yeah.
But you can make a decent sized batch of this and use this for all of our Walmart budget videos, so it's not just wasted on this one. That's why we've got a fairly large container of this. But I'm putting 1 tablespoon of that mixture, and I will put the measurements of the mixture itself up on the screen for you. And then now that all that is in there that we need to make this, I'm going to stir it up really good. If you warm up your water somehow, which wasn't real easy for us to do on camera, you would have an easier time of this to get that honey nice and mixed. This isn't terrible this way, though. This is room temperature.
The hot honey helps, too.
Hot honey warmed up our
Yeah.
must. So before you put the yeast in, it's good to have this at around 80 degrees, and I suspect this probably is around 80 degrees. Pretty close.
Yeah.
I think that's good enough. So this container has a little pinhole in the lid, and that works perfectly for this. I mean, it came that way from Walmart. This also has a spout. So this is a really good container to use for a fermenter. Walmart doesn't always necessarily carry this. So if If they don't have this, any container that they have that's a little over a gallon or 2 gallons that has a spout and has some way for you to vent the CO2 that the fermentation is going to produce will work. And if they don't have a way to let the CO2 escape, you can just leave the lid on loosely. But you don't want bugs to be able to get in, and you do want gas to be able to get out, because the gas will get out one way or the other. And it may not be a way that you like it to get out.
And make sure the spout's closed this time.
And yeah, the spout's got to be closed. And again, we did sanitize this, and every time I have a hard time not spilling this all over our towel.
Oh, or me.
It's because the lip of this has gotten scratched, so it's not water dynamic anymore. You'll have an easier time than I had on that. Okay, so we've got this in here. This is around 80-degree water, so it's not going to shock our yeast.
I've got honey. I've got honey everywhere.
Honey.
And then I am going to put most of a packet of this Fleischmann's Active Dry Yeast in here. You really don't need to use most of a packet or a whole packet, but it's pretty cheap, so I just kind of use more than I need, probably.
The downfall of that is if you put too much in, you can end up with a yeasty tasting mead.
That's true. So maybe half a packet.
A lot of the things that you would buy if you were making wine at home all the time, you would buy to help clear all of that yeast down to the bottom and get rid of any yeasty taste, but be a little sparing with the yeast that you put into this one. Sparing meaning probably around a teaspoon. Definitely no more than a teaspoon. Okay, so this is ready to go into a warm room. This is going to take 2 to 3 weeks to completely ferment. If you look at this tomorrow, you should see some bubbling and some activity of the stuff floating, basically moving on its own in here, and that means that it's fermenting. From that point, I would say probably wait 3 weeks, although it probably will be done sooner than that. But since you probably don't have tools to know, like a hydrometer, you probably want to give it more time than it might need, because you want to make sure that all of this is turned to alcohol that can be. So we're going to give this probably 2 weeks and use a hydrometer on it. We're going to cheat a little bit so that we know when it's done. And then we will come back on camera to show you the next step.
Okay, it has been 3 weeks, and you can see there's absolutely nothing going on, no bubbling, so we know it's done. And we are going to take it off of this, because you can see on the bottom.
Without shaking it.
Probably can't see. I'm not going to shake it, but there is a little bit of sediment at the bottom. We call that lees. And so we're going to pour this, that's what the spout is good for, back into our pitcher before we do the next step.
The sediment at the bottom is yeast, and it's our nutrient.
Yeah.
And it's other unmentionable stuff that comes out of the fermentation process. So you don't want to leave it on that as longer than you have to, because it will start tasting a little bit more like that. So I'm pouring this in a way that tries to keep the bubbling and the oxygen that I'm adding to a minimum, but at the end I'm going to tip it a little bit. It's more important to keep that lees from getting into the drink than it is to get all of the liquid, so just kind of keep that in mind. If that lees gets into the beverage, it's a lot harder to get it back out. If that does happen to you, put it in the fridge for a few days, and that will sink back down to the bottom, and you can try to pour it off. But what you might want to do is clean out this container with the spout, put it in the fridge that way so that you can start this process over again.
Yeah.
That's close to all of it. So what you have right here is 100% dry mead. And if that's what you're after,
You're done.
you're done. If you want it to not be so dry, if you want to have some more flavor or some sweetness, then keep watching. Actually, keep watching anyway.
Watching anyway.
Don't mess up our YouTube stats. She's got some fruit.
I do. So this is blueberry puree. I just picked blueberry because I had a batch of it already made up. You can put whatever fruit or whatever flavor you want to in it. So, but we're choosing blueberry, and really all you have to do to make this is
Start with frozen, great value
fruit, whatever flavor you want, thaw it out, and then you'll want to heat it up a little bit in the microwave so that it gets above 165 for 15 seconds. And you can use a thermometer or...
May not sound important, but that is very important because there is probably yeast in that fruit that's still alive.
Yep.
And you putting it in here with warmth and the sugar that it's bringing to the table can start fermenting again.
Yeah.
And if that happens, then you're going to lose the sweetness that you're trying to achieve and add more alcohol, which that's not the worst thing in the world, but
that part's okay.
It's
going to diminish the flavor.
You're going to get rid of the flavor that you're trying to get. So you definitely need to pasteurize it.
And I usually put it in there long enough to...
These are 5 ounces a piece,
These
right?
are 6 ounces a piece.
Yeah, so this is 12. You don't need to do all of 12, between 10 and 12.
And then once you've got it to be over 165 for 15 seconds, I put it in the blender. He's going to splash me with that. I put it in the blender, and I will tell you exactly how much sugar I put in this one. This is the blueberry, and it takes 12 tablespoons of sugar. And then you can put it in jars or Tupperware or whatever you want to put it in. You can freeze it, keep it in the fridge, whatever, and use it for your mead or anything else.
So this adds a little bit of sugar. She did have sugar in the puree that she made. So there's some sugar and there's sugar that's already in the fruit. So that added some sweetness. So if you want, it's going to taste a little harsh right now, but you can taste this right now with the fruit in there, knowing that it's going to get fruitier as it sits and some of that harshness is going to go away.
Right.
If you want to taste it now, go ahead. But we know that we want there to be a little more sweetness than what is going to be here. So we know that we want to add around 10 ounces of honey. Doesn't need to be exact, and this is also great value honey. This is a Walmart budget video, by the way.
And the fruit was great value fruit, too.
Everything was great value. It's all able to be bought from Walmart, if not great value. So this is a 32-ounce container of honey. So we can put approximately a third of this, it's going to be about right there, in here to sweeten it to the level that we like. So you can choose to wait to do this. You can do this now. We're going to do it now because we're going to want to have a short tasting at the end of this.
Yep. And also, the honey does add sweetness, but it also, mead kind of needs that honey aftertaste. It
Which
doesn't taste like mead if it doesn't have
the
that.
honey you started this with, a lot of that flavor goes away during fermentation. So this adds it back in and it makes it taste like a honey beverage again.
Yeah.
So it doesn't need to be exactly a third. And again, you can feel free to taste this as you're adding it. That's, I think, going to be good enough.
Yeah, I think that's pretty good.
So the honey also is fermentable. And there is yeast, again, like I said, that's viable in here. So for basically the duration of this product, because this is a Walmart budget product and you're not using something called potassium sorbate to make it so that the yeast can't start fermenting again, this needs to live in the fridge for its whole life.
Yep.
So if you leave this out on a counter for a couple of days at room temperature, it probably will start fermenting again.
Most likely, with the honey and the fruit and the sugar that's in the puree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a perfect environment if it warms up.
Yep.
So keep it in the fridge and you won't have that problem. So there is still going to be a certain harshness to this. So we're going to want to let this sit for a while. Again, taste it. If you like it the way that it is now, drink it. We like it to be a little mellower. So we're going to put it in our fridge for at least a couple of weeks and maybe a little longer. It's got to fit into our filming schedule, so it might be quite a bit longer. But what we're going to do is clean this out.
Get all that crud out of it.
Wash it out, use the antibacterial Dawn on it again, and then pour this back into it. And then put it into the fridge for our 3 weeks. And after we've done that, we'll come back and taste it.
All right, we are back, and it has been just about 3 weeks. And you can see it is a little bit different in color, but not too much.
So after 2 weeks, I felt enough time had gone by, so I used our pitcher.
Oh, yeah.
And I used the spout on this, and I poured all of the liquid off of all of the fruit that was sitting down
As
there.
it gets...
This was in the fridge, and that is probably an important thing. When you keep this in the fridge, it does what is called cold crash. And that means all the particles and all that fruit went down to the bottom so that it was below the spout. And then I poured the juice out of this into our pitcher. I cleaned out our container and then poured it back in. And then it's sat another week. So all of the fruit that was floating in here is no longer here. So the color is going to definitely be different than it was last time. But that made it so that when we do this tasting, we're not dealing with particles floating in there.
And we actually have not tasted this yet.
We have not. We have no idea what to expect from this batch. But yeah, you will want to use your pitcher that you have to transfer it into the pitcher to get rid of all the particles around here after you let it sit in the fridge for a few days. And then if you want to use this container you could just pour it out of here in your glass if you want.
This is pretty handy though.
This is handy for us to use the spout to dispense it with.
Has a built-in
and this
dispenser.
liquid is completely clear now.
It looks good.
I mean, relatively speaking. You could make it clearer if you use winemaking tricks, but we didn't.
Well, you can't get those tricks from Walmart. Well, I guess you could get coffee filters from Walmart.
I see a couple little particles in there, but it's pretty good considering how we did it.
Well, I am pleasantly surprised by that. You can taste the blueberry.
This is better than 90% of the store-bought meads we bought.
It's better than everyone we have in our fridge up there right now.
It's not too sweet. I can taste the honey and I can taste the fruit.
Yeah. I like this way better than the store-bought stuff that we have.
Yeah. We've been trying basically every store-bought mead we can get a hold of. I ordered 5 meads via mail too.
Yeah.
And honestly, I don't think we finished any of them. We tried them all. And
I wasn't
we're
a fan.
We'll drink our red wine.
Yep.
So, and this is actually pretty good.
It is good.
This we would finish, I believe, and will finish. So, if you use winemaker tools and winemaker ingredients, such as, the clearing agents, bentonite and chitosan and kesosol and all that, you can make a better product. So, watch our other videos to see how to do that. But this, using just Walmart stuff on a budget, I mean, I'll put the price up that this costs total and the price per gallon. It's pretty darn good stuff.
I will say that we've done a lot of Walmart wines and seltzers and all of that. This is my favorite one.
Good, and especially because mead is not our favorite drink normally. So, again, you can play with the levels of the fruit that you put in here, the levels of the honey that you put in afterwards to sweeten it. I think this is actually the perfect level for us.
I think so too. It's not.
And that's it.
It's not overly sweet, but it's sweet enough.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's not puckering, and it's not dry.
Yeah, I like it. It's good. I think I will drink some more of it. Fill me up. No, I'm just kidding.
Put it in a thermos.
All right. Well, thank you guys for watching another one of our videos. I hope you enjoyed it. Try it. It's really good. So leave us your comments and what you did with it, how much honey you put in it, what fruit you chose, anything you did with it that is of interest to you is of interest to us. Thank you again for watching our video. Please like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. And if you have, thank you very much for your support. We appreciate you. And until next time, cheers.